Warm welcome, students. Today we are going to study chapter 1 from First Flight, entitled A Letter to God. It's written by G.L. Prentice. Students, before we analyze the story, let's understand what the title says, A Letter to God. Whether a question arises whether God has any address where a letter can be sent. Second, if that is so, doesn't it involve unflinching, unquestionable faith in God? That if I write a letter, it would reach God, not only reach there, I'll receive some reply as well. This story, A Letter to God, will help you in writing stories also. How? Because when we narrate a story, we take a person who is not, we cannot say that he is infallible. He has flaws. He is a common human being. And he is enjoying his life, but there is a turning point. The turning point is such, it makes the story interesting, that how that person is going to deal with it. And then a stage comes where whether he will realize his dream, whether he will find some solution, that's the climax. The story reaches at its peak, and then we find some solution, and the story ends there. Now, is it a happy ending? What type of ending it is? That's also noted. Here in this poem, A Letter to God by G.L. Prentice, it's a story of a farmer in a part of Latin America. He is having his house at the crest of the hill, peak, at the top of the hill, and he has his fields in the valley, and he can, from his house, he can see all around his own fields. He surveys the land and says that the crops have ripened, but they require a downpour, that is heavy rainfall or mild shower. And his wishes are answered when clouds come from northeast. They're not. It says huge mountains of clouds. That means it's going to rain very heavily. Now he here, up to here, you can say that the farmer is a happy, contented person. And when he sees the rains coming, he is thrilled that his prayers have been answered. But little does he know, those rains turn into a hailstorm. Now, hailstorm is such that huge amount of ice begins to fall, snow begins to fall. And the hailstorm lasts for hours together. And it destroys his fields completely. The flowers which were blooming at that time before the rains were all now destroyed, damaged, and there is a cover of white salt all around. He remarks that a plague of locusts would not have destroyed as much as this hailstorm has done. Now, students, anybody else would have committed suicide because he doesn't have not only to sell any of his products and get some money, but for his own, he doesn't have anything to eat. Everything is destroyed. Late at night, he thinks that it's only God who can help him. And next morning, he goes towards the post office, writes a letter, puts it into an envelope, and then drops it into the letterbox. What are the contents of this letter? He says, God, the hailstorms have completely destroyed my harvest. I have nothing to eat, nothing to sell. I don't even have the seeds for the next crop, for sowing the next crop. And that to cover up his loss, he requires 100 pesos. Now here, students, what you will do, we can say that he was a happy, contented man. How? The right corn was there. Required rains. Instead, rain. Along with the rain, came hailstorm. Destroyed his crops completely. And he decides to write to God, write a letter to God, praying for £100. When the post office staff collects all the letters, it found that there was an unusual letter addressed to God, and all the staff is amused. The postmaster says that the person has unflinching, unquestionable, inflinching. Infringing faith, and that his faith should not be shaken. Therefore, he decides to enter into correspondence with the farmer. On opening the letter, he finds that there is a demand of 100 pesos. The postmaster is not deterred by this demand. He puts a part of his salary and requests his colleagues to contribute, asks his friends for charity, and thereby is able to collect more than half of what has been demanded by Lencho. He puts it into the envelope and writes and signs it from God and addresses it to Lencho. Lencho asks whether there is any reply, and an envelope addressed to him is given to them. On opening the envelope, Lencho is not surprised to find money. However, when he counts, it's short of 30 pesos. On the other hand, the postmaster is content that he has done something good for that farmer, and he expects that the farmer will be very happy. But from the demeanor of the farmer, it's found that he's not satisfied. He takes up the pen and paper there and then writes a letter to God and drops it in the mailbox. The postmaster, when he is gone, immediately the postmaster opens that said envelope and finds that there is written that God, I had demanded 100 pesos and you cannot be questioned that 100 pesos, you have not sent 100 pesos. You must have sent 100 pesos. But I have received only 70 pesos. Send me the balance money as I need it very badly. But, and here is the twist, but don't send it through the post office, as these people are a bunch of unfaithful people. They cannot be unreliable. So, you can find out how a story is told. It's about a common person who leads a contented life. And ups and downs come. He doesn't lose hope. There is a clash between man and nature. You see? And in this clash, he finds a solution. He wants to write a letter to God. How this unflinching faith is there? That he says that God, you must have sent $100 as requested by me, but I have received only 70 pesos. Send me the balance money, but don't send it through the post office, as these people are a bunch of people. So there is an irony in this situation. I am using it. A bunch of things. Do you feel the persons who have tried to help the farmer could be branded a bunch of crooks? Well, we can say that when he has unflinching faith, then this statement can be made by the farmer. Now, 2-3 things are there to be noted. One is that while writing the story, we must put metaphors and similes. Here, the story is full of metaphors and symbols. All the story. In all the story, there is metaphor as well as simile. An ox of a man. he is so hardworking that he works like an ox. Then the raindrops are big drops are 10 cent pieces and the little ones are fives. New coins. Why are the new coins? Because the rain that is coming will bring prosperity. His crops will grow. So the drops are compared with the coins. Again, when the hailstorms begin to drop, the hails are dropping, begin to fall, these truly did resemble new silver coins, but they were compared with the silver coins. Again, see the beauty of the language. Not a leaf remained on the trees. The hailstones pounded on the earth for an hour or so, and not a leaf remained on the trees. It was blooming, the flowers had begun to show. The corn was totally destroyed. The flowers were gone from the plants. Lenchos sold was filled with sadness. When the storm had passed, he stood in the middle of the field and said to his sons. One thing more is there, which I want to point out. For an hour the hail rained on the house. Up, see how to make that atmosphere more grey. He said, for an hour the hail rained on the house, the garden, the hillside, the cornfield, on the whole valley. He could have said that it rained heavily, the hailstorms fell heavily, but to make it more, make the meaning more, he says that the hail rained on the house, the garden, the hillside, the cornfield, on the whole valley. Again. Now, here again it is said, postmaster, on seeing the envelope addressed to God, comments, what faith! I wish I had the faith of the man who wrote this letter, starting up a correspondence with God. This is interesting. And then he says that he was able to send the farmer only a little more than half. It was not complete, 100, little more than half. Again, it was the postman himself who handed the letter to him, while the postmaster, experiencing the contentment of a man who has performed a good deed, looked on from his office. Here, the emphasis, it was the postman himself. How the pronoun has been used. emphatic pronoun. So, likewise, the story is full of idiomatic sentences. There are metaphors, simile, and literary devices have been used. Like at the end, we were expecting that the farmer would express his thanks, but the writer gives an amusing turn, ironically saying that God, you cannot be wrong. You must have sent 100 pesos, but these 30 pesos have been taken away, stashed away by the post office people. Don't send the balance money through them, as they are a bunch of pigs. So here is a summary of the chapter. Now we will take up the meanings of difficult words and then take up the questions and answers. Now, crest means peak. His house was at the crest of the hill, at the peak of the hill. Downpour means heavy rain. He expected that there should either be a downpour or a shower. Shower means a mild rain, and downpour is heavy rain. Intimately, closely. He knew his fields intimately, very closely. Predicted, foretold. The rains came as he had predicted. He has told beforehand, foretold. Draped. Draped means covered with. His fields were draped with a sheet of salt. Covered with. What type of salt was that? Hailstorms had dropped. They have also been described as frozen pearls. And they have also been said that it's a type, it's compared with the salt, with salt also. Destroyed, ruined. His crops were destroyed completely. Solitary, the only. What type of hope was there? The solitary hope was that God will rescue him. God will give him the necessary assistance. Amiable means friendly. The postmaster was an amiable person, friendly person. Contentment, satisfaction. The postmaster saw from his desk with contentment that he had done some charitable act. Contentment. Slightest, least. They hadn't the slightest idea what Lencho would write. Okay? Bunch means group, and crooks means dishonest people. Lancho says that God should not send money through post office, as they have already stashed away 30 pesos out of what we have sent 100 pesos. So he branded them bunch of crooks. Bunch means group, crooks means dishonesty. Now, after going through the summary, please read the story. It's a very interesting story and you will fall in love with it. We can now take up the questions one by one. Describe the destruction caused by hailstorms to Lancho's place. Now, what type of discussion? When it rained, he was thrilled. But the rains were followed by hailstorm. And this hailstorm destroyed his crops completely. The hailstorms fell, the hails fell for hours on end and destroyed his crops completely. What are the raindrops compared to and why? The raindrops were compared to new coins of 10 pesos, big drops 10 pesos, and small ones 5 pesos. Why? Because this rain will bring good harvest and he will be able to buy money in exchange for it, and it will bring prosperity to his life. So these were compared to new coins. How did the post office staff react to Lancho's letter? It was unusual, having an address with having a name which had no address, with no address. And as such, the post office staff was amused, so much so that postmaster first reacted with a laugh, but then said that what faith? Person had great faith, and that he must help him so that the writer's faith, the writer of the letter's faith is not shaken. How did Lancho react when he counted the money? He became furious. In his mind, he calculated that God must have sent him the amount he had requested for, that is 100 pesos, and that this money has, a part of it has been filtered away, stashed away. So he was very angry, he was furious. What did Lancho write in his second letter to God? Lancho wrote, stating that he had received only 70 pesos as against 100 requested by him, and he needed the balance money badly. God must send it, but not through post office, as they are a bunch of crooks. Were the post office employees really the crooks? No. They were God-fearing, helpful persons. They contributed towards the charity of their own accord. We cannot label Lencho also that he has not done justice to these people. He was a simple person and had blind faith in God. That blind faith led him to comment on the empires. So, students, we can answer these questions. These are some of the questions, model questions that can come, and by reading the story, you can do justice with any question that comes.